let me tell you how we do it for Wolf PAC. Now, you know, let me quickly tell you, if you haven't seen it, let me tell you the amendment, let me tell you our strategy, and explain why this is so important and why this helps us make it doable, okay? So the amendment is corporations are not human beings. They do not have the constitutional rights of United States citizens. And we will publicly finance all elections. Because if the donors are writing the paychecks, they're going to do what the donors ask them to do. If we're writing the paychecks, then at least we got a shot that they might actually listen to us, that they might actually be our representatives, right? So take the donors out of the equation, take the lobbyists out of the equation, and we got a chance. Okay. So now the problem is, I already told you, Washington is corrupted. The virus is taken over. Now, a normal way that you pass a constitutional amendment is you get 2/3 of Congress to vote yes, and then you take it to the states, and 3/4 of the states ratify, right? But we can't do it in this case. We can't even get 60% of the Senate to agree to the Disclose Act. There's no way you can get 2/3 of Congress. They're too corrupted. Let's say Progressive Change Campaign Committee is a wonderful progressive group. Adam Green runs it. He's really smart, really effective. And from time to time, he wins, and they get progressive members of Congress. For example, Tom Perriello in Virgil Good's old seat. Virgil Good is a horrible, bigoted Republican from Virginia, and Stephanie Taylor, who's one of the heads of Progressive Change Campaign Committee, was integrally involved in getting his ass kicked out of Congress. They brought in Perriello. He's a good progressive. He lasted 2 years. Okay. Either the money comes and swamps you over, or if you stay long enough, you get corrupted, right? So we can't catch up quick enough in Washington. But there is a second way to amend the Constitution. Now, it is very rare, but it is also actually more realistic and more doable. You have to get 2/3 of the states to call for a constitutional convention. And then, in the convention, you get an amendment. And then you take it to the states, just like the other process, and 3/4 ratify. Now, when you mention convention, first of all, a lot of the scholars and the law professors flip out. They're like, oh, my God. I literally was in New York at a meeting of constitutional law professors. I don't know why they let me in the room. Wound up regretting it. They did. And I talked about this idea, and I said constitutional convention, and they said, literally, one of the professors, old guy, who, disaster. Okay. Why? He says, oh, my God, you'd open up a can of worms that could change the Constitution. Yeah, but first of all, what we already have is a disaster. I already showed you. We don't even have a democracy anymore. How does it get worse? Okay, second of all, you can have a limited convention on just this issue. Okay? So you don't have to worry about, oh, my God, what if they bring in abortion, et cetera. Third of all, who cares? They can bring in abortion all they like. You're not going to get 3/4 of the states to ratify a pro-life amendment. It is impossible. California, Rhode Island, Vermont, New York, et cetera, they would never stand for it. There's only one issue that 3/4 of the country agrees on. It's that our politicians are corrupted by big money, and we got to get money out of politics. It is the only thing that 3/4 of the country agrees on, okay? So how in the world are we going to do it? Well, this is the beauty of this idea. You can't, it's not like the Disclose Act. You take a vote in 2010, you wait, you take a vote 2 years later, oh, shit, it got worse, right? You do it one state at a time. You put them on the board. We all work together, whether it's here in New York or it's in the Connecticut group or it's the New Jersey group, and you target these legislators who, by the way, are not used to being targeted by a mass movement. And if you show up 100 people, 200 people in a state House meeting, you will blow their doors off. Like, Jesus, what happened here? And you will definitely get their attention. If on top of that, you say, hey, listen, I got a carrot and I got a stick. Which one would you like? You will get their attention. We don't have to take all 50 states at the same time. In fact, we only need 34 states, but we certainly don't need all 34 at the same time. The minute we put one on the board, we put Connecticut on the board, here's what's going to happen. What? Oh, damn, these guys are serious, right? And once Rhode Island sees that Connecticut did it, they're like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem so unreasonable. They did it in Connecticut. And you know what? Do I want 40,000 spent against me, or do I want 40,000 on my side? Well, I like my seat, and there's 200 people in the room, and they seem pretty angry. And you know what? I actually kind of agree because I'm in the 86% who thinks that there's too much money in politics. You put Rhode Island on the board. If you put 3 states on the board, you will catch the attention of this entire country, and you will light a fire that cannot be put out. And then, if you put a red state on the board, everybody is going to flip the fuck out. Because then they're going to realize, oh my God, this isn't just a Democratic thing. This isn't a liberal pipe dream. It turns out conservatives hate the money in politics. They hate the crony capitalism. They hate that our government is bought. They don't believe their politicians even more than we don't believe our politicians. They took out Bob Bennett in Utah. Bob Bennett, who voted straight conservative, nearly 100% voting record. They're like, we don't trust you. You're a goddamn corrupt politician. Off you go. Okay? Did they do that because they wanted somebody more right-wing? No, they did that because they got this gut feeling that they're getting screwed, that the establishment is screwing them, and that old senators like Bob Bennett are part of that establishment screwing them. You think we can't get Montana? Montana is the state that just fought the Supreme Court saying, you got to let us make our own laws here in Montana. In Montana, we've had a law for over 100 years saying, we know what happened when we let corporations put unlimited money in our elections. They bought the whole government. It happened over 100 years ago. This is not a new process. The minute you allow it, they do it. We don't want it in Montana. Supreme Court ruled against them. Didn't even listen to they didn't even issue a written ruling. They just said, get, and they chased them away. Now, if you go to Montana and you say, hey, you want to help out and get money out of politics? My guess is they're going to say, hell yeah. You will light the country on fire. 86% of the country is on our side. They just need to know that we're out there, that we're fighting for them, and they will join the fight. This is not some sort of fringe issue. This is not something where like, I don't know about the whales. Is it a good thing or a bad thing if we, I don't know what we're doing with the whales, okay? I don't know what's happening with dolphin-free tuna, right? Do I have to be a vegan? No. All you got to do is, if you agree with us, after we do the really, really hard work and we put a couple of states on the board, when we go to Nebraska, when we go to California, just show up. Just next time there's a meeting in the House or the Senate in your state, come along with us, okay? Or, if you can help, chip in $5. Or call one of your congressmen and join the movement. And they will, and they will. Now, look, I brought up the Young Turks show for a reason as well. Not just because I can show you that it can be done, but this is exactly how we did it. When we were scraping and fighting and we were trying to find a way, the first place we got on there was on Sirius Satellite Radio. You know how we got on there? I called somebody at Sirius, and I said, okay, who's the program director? They're like, I don't know. And they referred me to somebody else. They referred me to someone else. They were a mess when they started. Eventually, I found a guy, and I said, all right, how do I get on? He's like, man, all right, I'm managing this channel. Send me a CD. Let's see what happens, right? So I sent him a CD. He's like, I guess it's good enough. I'll have him run it. Boom. We put out the next letter we send to anybody else. Young Turks, Sirius Satellite Radio. Okay? We're on there, right? And we stayed, and we stayed, and we stayed. And then, I don't remember if it was a year later, a year and a half later, they finally got a really good program director, a lot of experience, and he calls me. He's like, turns out you're on our station. I said, yeah, that's right. He's like, why don't you come in and let me decide whether I should keep you on there, right? And he brings me into New York. I was in L.A. He listens to a couple things. He says, yeah, you guys are pretty good. Okay. In fact, you're so good, I'm going to give you the morning show. Why? Because we showed up, because we came to fight. And then we went to Kansas, Wichita, Kansas, liberal show in Wichita, Kansas. We were on the weekends. We went from number 16 in the market to number 1, okay? And then we went to Oregon and with Seattle. And every time you put a victory on the board, people go, oh, wow, you're number 1 in Wichita. How the hell did that happen? Okay, maybe you can work in Minnesota. I didn't know that. Okay, let's try you in Minnesota. And then when we went online, it was so hard to get to 3 million views. I mean, people don't know this. They don't know that 3 million is kind of a magic mark, but we've been in it for 7 years now in online video. So we know all the tricks of the trade, and we know what the barriers are. And it turns out, for whatever reason, roughly speaking, it's 3 million views. It's so hard to get there. You're swimming in an ocean. You're swimming against the whole world. Everybody's put. Do you know they put up an hour of video? No, well, some amazing number, like an hour of video every second on YouTube. Or so it's amazing how much video there is on YouTube, and you got to swim against that entire tide to get to 3 million. But you know what happens when you get to 3 million? It gets easier. You hit 6 million before you know it. And then it picks up speed as you go along. TYT Sports is a channel that we put together a couple of years ago, and I remember a couple of guys on my team, who shall remain nameless, said, "Oh, it's not going to work. We don't have the rights to any of the clips. We're not going to be able to put it together. It's not going to work." I said, "Trust me, it's going to work." Okay? They hit 3 million. Next thing you know, they hit 6, they hit 8, they hit 10, they hit 20. It's our second biggest channel now. Okay? It's the same exact thing in politics. After you hit Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Hawaii, and if God willing, we get, if he exists, if he's willing, if we put Montana or another red state on the board, you're going to be shocked at how quickly we get to 34. Now, they say, oh, well, these processes sometimes take decades. That's true. And sometimes they take 18 months. One of the amendments passed in 18 months from start to finish. Well, it turns out if 86% of the country agrees with you, sometimes you take off like a rocket. But the hardest part is putting these states on the board. And it could be any 3 states. It could be any red state. It could be New York. It could be New Jersey. It could be Connecticut. It could be someone in this room that does it, that gets us on the board and gets us fired up and gets us more momentum that we need. Remember 86%. Have I mentioned that before? Oh. That's the end of the presentation.